and welcome to The Thought for the Day. I'm the Reverend Lindsay Smith and I'm part of the parish here in Portishead. And what do you think when I say, tell me your story? Do you go into biography mode and start telling me about your hometown and your family? Or maybe you talk about what you did that week. What is your story? Your story is not a mere biography of a few words scribbled on a piece of paper. Your story is special because it's your story and it tells where God is and where God has been in your life and what God is currently doing in you. Your story is made up of your family side, your personal experiences, but it's also made up of your struggles, your hopes and your dreams. Your story is a living witness to the power of the Holy Spirit, how living a life of faith is a life following Jesus, and how when we follow Jesus it changes the heart of us and the heart of those we encounter. One of my favourite stories is when Jesus meets the Samaritan lady at the well. We all know this familiar story, but sometimes a bit we miss is that she goes back to her town and she retells her story. And in the retelling of her story, other people become the followers of Christ and know who Jesus is. We don't share our stories to be heard or to boast, because we share what God is doing in our lives, because sharing strengthens not only the storyteller, but the one hearing the story. It's affirmation on who God is on both parts. So please allow me to share somebody else's story with you today. And this story belongs to a lady called Violet. Her full name was Violet May Hyman and she was born on the 18th of May 1907. Her mother Elizabeth was from Bedminster and her father Henry was a Jewish refugee from the Russian-Ukraine border. And Robert Welsh, a local lad, fell in love with her and wanted to marry her. But Violet had other ideas. But each night after bell ringing, Robert would wait outside the church door here in St. Peter's and wait for Violet to leave the church. And as Violet left, he would shout, "Vi, will you marry me?" Each week in the silence of the night, Violet would respond with a firm no. And without even looking over her shoulder, she would cycle down the church path home. But one September evening in 1939, when the bells had finished ringing, when Britain was at war with Germany, Robert once again asked, "Vi, will you marry me?" And as Vi cycled down the church path, she looked over her shoulder and shouted back, "Yes, Wednesday week." So by special licence, Robert, George Welsh and Violet May Hyman were married on the 21st of September, here in 1939. Let me read the newspaper cutting to you.
Daughter of Portishead councillor weds. The wedding took place at St. Peter's Church, Portishead on Thursday, not Wednesday as I said, of Miss Violet May Hyman, second daughter of councillor, and Miss H.G. Hyman of 1 Bristol Road, Portishead, and gunner Robert George Welsh, eldest son of Mr. and Mrs. Welsh of Stanford, Bristol Road. The bride was given away by her brother, Mr. W. Hyman, wore a two-piece assembly consisting of a floral dress and navy edge-to-edge coat, with a navy hat and accessories to match. The bridegroom's brother, gunner J.H. Welsh, carried out the duties of best man. The Portishead band of ringers rang a special peal in honour of the bride, who has been a member of the band for the past 12 years. The Reverend Rawlings, rector, officiated and Mrs. Windybank played the organ.
Violet and Robert are my grandparents, and sadly I never met Robert, my grandfather, but my grandmother's faith formed the foundation stone of my own. Her story is a huge part of my story. She prayed for me and most of Portishead. She listened to my hopes and my dreams. She taught me to love creation and see God in the small things, like the red geraniums that scented her home. My story is rooted in this place, rooted in the bell tower of this place. And I find it amazing that the bells of this church have been a witness and part of this story. and they continue to do so today. They rang a peal at Granny's wedding. They rang at our wedding. And they rang muffled at Granny's funeral. The bell beside me already has a story to tell. The story of Jonathan, to whom the bell is dedicated. The story of its makers. The story of those who brought a dream of a new bell into reality. So many stories woven together before it even hung in the bell tower. The stories we tell should be honest, but also laced with the hope that we have in Jesus. When we are willing to share the grime and the good of our stories, we encourage others in the community to do the same. And community can be transformed through storytelling. Telling our story is beautiful. It's a way of discipleship. It's church-loving and God-glorifying. And I wonder what stops us as a church from telling the stories of how God has shaped our own lives, as a church, as a parish, and as individuals. When this new bell is hung, it will boldly ring out the story of God. It will boldly declare that God is at work in this beautiful parish. I wonder how God is calling you to respond.
Go on.